Hello and welcome to The Sleepy Scientist. I'm glad you're here. As you settle in for the night, perhaps tucked beneath a soft blanket, eyes growing heavier with each quiet breath, I invite you to join me on a journey through one of the most fascinating and invisible processes keeping you alive, the story of oxygen in your body. Now, I'll do my best not to make it too interesting, but in the unfortunate event that you stay awake because your brain is too busy whispering, "Wait, red blood cells do what now?" Well, at least you'll drift off a little wiser than before. Before we begin, if you enjoy this gentle exploration into science and sleep, I'd be so grateful if you gave this video a like and maybe even subscribe to the channel. It really helps more sleepy minds find their way here. And while you're cozying in, I'd love to know, where in the world are you listening from? And what time is it there right now? Feel free to drop it in the comments below. It's always lovely seeing this little sleepy community stretching quietly across the globe. A quick note before we begin. This video is for educational and entertainment purposes only. It's not intended to provide medical advice or replace guidance from a qualified healthcare professional. If you have questions about your health or oxygen-related conditions, always consult your doctor or a licensed medical provider. All right, one deep breath in and out. Let's begin our story. One that started in the hearts of stars and now plays out quietly inside you with every breath you take. Long before you ever took your first breath, long before humans even existed, oxygen had already begun its long cosmic journey toward your lungs. To truly understand the story of oxygen in your body, we have to start not on Earth, but in the heart of a dying star. Yes, it turns out that you, and the air you breathe, are made of stardust. When massive stars run out of fuel, they collapse and explode in spectacular events called supernovae. These explosions scatter newly forged elements into the universe, including one of the most vital ingredients for life as we know it: oxygen. These atoms drift through space, sometimes for millions or even billions of years, until gravity and time gather them into new solar systems, planets, and eventually into the thin blue atmosphere of Earth. But Earth's early atmosphere wasn't particularly cozy for oxygen lovers. In fact, for the first few billion years, oxygen was hardly around at all. The young planet's air was a harsh cocktail of methane, ammonia, and carbon dioxide, a scene better suited to microbial extremophiles than cozy mammals with big, oxygen-hungry brains. The real turning point came thanks to some tiny, industrious bacteria called cyanobacteria. These microscopic pioneers lived in ancient oceans and figured out a game-changing trick: photosynthesis. Using sunlight, they converted carbon dioxide and water into sugars, and in the process they released oxygen as a waste product. Not exactly polite house guests, they slowly began transforming Earth's atmosphere, puffing out more and more oxygen with each passing millennia. At first, most of this oxygen didn't float freely. It got soaked up by the oceans and rocks, bonding with iron to form rust-coloured layers on the sea floor. But eventually the world ran out of places to stash it, and oxygen began to accumulate in the air. This event is charmingly named the Great Oxygenation Event, which sounds like a dramatic concert, but was more of a slow planetary transformation. Think glacial pace, not fireworks. Now, while we mammals tend to throw oxygen a lot of appreciation, not everyone was thrilled about this new atmosphere. For countless anaerobic organisms, microbes that thrived without oxygen, it was basically an apocalypse. Imagine trying to enjoy your soup only to find someone dumped a bunch of bleach in it. Oxygen is a highly reactive molecule, and for these early life forms, it was deeply toxic. Many went extinct. Some found clever ways to hide in oxygen-free corners of the world, and others, they evolved. And that's the thing. Oxygen didn't just appear and hang around like an inert background gas. It pushed life forward. It forced change. Over time, organisms began to use oxygen's power, tapping into its reactive nature to fuel more complex cellular processes. And with that came the rise of eukaryotes, cells with a nucleus, and eventually multicellular life. You, me, jellyfish, sunflowers, cats in bow ties. We all owe our complexity to oxygen's arrival on the scene. Fast forward a few billion years, and oxygen has become more than just a background player. It's a leading actor in the ongoing play of life. Today, the air you breathe is made up of roughly 78% nitrogen, around 21% oxygen, and a handful of other gases like argon, carbon dioxide, and trace amounts of water vapour, helium, and neon. It's mostly nitrogen, sure, but oxygen is the star that steals the spotlight every time. When you take a breath, you're not just pulling in air, you're inviting in molecules that have been circulating the planet for eons. That breath might contain oxygen atoms exhaled by a whale last week, a tree in the Amazon yesterday, or a poet centuries ago. It's poetic in its own right, a global, invisible recycling program in constant motion. And though oxygen's just one part of the mix, it's arguably the most biologically precious. Unlike nitrogen, which mostly just passes through, or carbon dioxide, which we exhale as waste, oxygen is seized by your lungs and rushed into your bloodstream with something approaching urgency. Your body knows how important it is. Every cell is waiting for its arrival like an excited puppy at the window. Of course, oxygen doesn't just float freely in the air for your convenience. Plants are still doing the hard work. Through photosynthesis, they continue to take in carbon dioxide, drink up water through their roots, and with a little help from sunlight, transform those ingredients into glucose and breathe out oxygen in the process. It's a neat little system. We breathe out what plants need, and they return the favour. A quiet, ancient handshake between species. What's especially beautiful about this exchange is how balanced it is. Delicate, even. Too much oxygen, and things get unstable. Fire becomes easier to spark. Cells suffer oxidative damage. Too little, and animals begin to falter. Brains fog, muscles weaken, life sputters. It's a tightrope act, and Earth's systems have been walking it for hundreds of millions of years. Even the evolution of land plants helped lock in more oxygen. Forests and jungles didn't just make Earth greener, they made the air more breathable. Massive ancient ferns, mosses and trees contributed to oxygen spikes in the atmosphere that may have even allowed for oversized insects during certain periods in Earth's history. Dragonflies with wingspans longer than a dinner plate, all thanks to elevated oxygen levels. But while we owe a lot to plants and cyanobacteria, oxygen's story doesn't just live in forests and oceans. It lives in your lungs, your blood, and every single cell of your body. It's there when you stretch in the morning, when you drift off to sleep, and even now as you listen, quietly fueling every beat, every thought, every gentle blink. So the next time you inhale, whether consciously or not, know that you're part of something vast and ancient. Each breath carries a story billions of years old, one that stretches from the cores of stars to the leaves of trees to the red blood cells racing through your veins. You don't just breathe oxygen, you are oxygen in motion. Take a slow, deep breath in, and now let it out. That simple act you just performed, so easy, so automatic, is actually the beginning of one of the most extraordinary biological chains of events in your entire body. Breathing might feel like second nature, but what's really happening behind the scenes is a delicate, intricate performance of engineering and chemistry, fine-tuned over millions of years of evolution. Let's start at the very beginning of the breath. Air enters through your nose, or your mouth, depending on the moment. Now, the nose is nature's preferred gateway, and for good reason. It's lined with tiny hairs and mucus that trap dust, pollen, and rogue insects that may be wandering where they don't belong. But the real magic lies in the structures known as nasal turbinates, delicate bone ridges that help warm, moisten, and filter the air before it gets any deeper. Imagine them like gentle spiral slides, curling and twirling the air to make it just right for the delicate tissues inside your lungs. It's like a luxury spa treatment for incoming oxygen. If you breathe through your mouth, well, air takes a bit more of an express route. Great in emergencies or while exercising, but not ideal for day-to-day life. Mouth breathing skips the filters and humidifiers and delivers air in a bit more of a rough and ready fashion. Your nose may not seem all that glamorous, but it's doing a lot more than just holding up your glasses. Once the air passes through your nasal passages or mouth, it travels down your pharynx and then the larynx, your voice box. You can thank the larynx for every song you've ever sung in the shower or every time you've tried and failed to whisper during a movie. From there, the air heads into the trachea or windpipe, which serves as the main highway to the lungs. It's a sturdy tube, reinforced with cartilage rings to make sure it stays open and doesn't collapse like a soggy straw. Now here's where things start to branch out, literally. The trachea divides into two bronchi, each leading to a lung. From there, these tubes divide and redivide like a fractal tree, forming smaller and smaller branches called bronchioles. Eventually they end in tiny air sacs called alveoli, and this is where the real business begins. Your lungs are full of these alveoli, about 300 million of them give or take. That's more than the population of most countries, and each one is like a tiny balloon, perfectly shaped to maximize surface area. If you could somehow flatten out all of your alveoli, their surface area would cover something close to the size of a tennis court. Imagine carrying that around in your chest. It's a good thing lungs are squishy. Each alveolus is wrapped in a web of capillaries, tiny blood vessels so narrow that red blood cells have to squeeze through in single file, and right here, in this microscopic interface between air and blood, something beautiful happens. Oxygen, freshly arrived from the outside world, diffuses across the thin membrane of the alveoli and slips into your bloodstream. At the same time, carbon dioxide, the waste product of cellular activity, moves in the other direction, leaving the blood to be exhaled on your next breath out. This exchange happens thanks to simple diffusion, molecules naturally moving from areas of higher concentration to lower concentration. It's quiet, efficient, and doesn't require a single conscious thought from you. Your body is like a silent butler, constantly adjusting and accommodating, keeping everything in balance without fuss. And how often does this miracle take place? Well, you breathe in and out around 12 to 20 times per minute when you're at rest. That's over 17,000 breaths per day. In a single year, your lungs will have drawn in over 6 million litres of air, all while you're busy doing things like tying your shoes or daydreaming about soup. But the lungs don't act alone. They're driven by a powerful muscle called the diaphragm, which sits just below them like a soft dome. When you inhale, the diaphragm contracts and flattens, pulling downward and expanding the chest cavity. This creates negative pressure, essentially a vacuum, and air rushes in to fill the space. When you exhale, the diaphragm relaxes and moves back up, gently squeezing the air back out. It's rhythmic, continuous, and surprisingly soothing, like the tide coming in and out. Your intercostal muscles, the ones between your ribs, also pitch in, especially when you need a deeper breath, or when you're physically active. They lift and spread the rib cage to give the lungs even more room to expand. And when you really push things, like during a sprint or a fit of laughter, other muscles in your chest, back, and abdomen join the effort. It becomes a full-body symphony of motion, all in service of something we usually don't even think about. Now, not every breath is the same. You might take shallow breaths when you're anxious, or deep belly breaths when you're relaxed. You might sigh, yawn, cough, or hiccup. These are all just variations on the same theme, your body playing with the instrument of breath. Even something as simple as a sneeze is your body's dramatic way of clearing the respiratory passages, like a nasal fireworks display. It's easy to forget just how much coordination and design goes into breathing, but your lungs are astonishingly adaptive. They can handle hikes up mountains, dives under the sea, city smog, and the occasional sniffle from chopping onions. They're remarkably self-cleaning too. Tiny hair-like structures called cilia line your airways and move mucus upward, sweeping out dust, bacteria, and other unwelcome visitors like a microscopic conveyor belt. And yes, lungs do have their limits, but they're also impressively forgiving. Damage from pollutants, illness, or smoking can impair their function, but given time and care, they can often repair themselves. They're the kind of organs that quietly do their job every minute of every day, asking for very little in return. Just clean air, a bit of exercise, and maybe the occasional mindful breath. So the next time you find yourself breathing deeply, whether it's after a brisk walk, a stressful moment, or just lying in bed at night listening to the rise and fall of your chest, take a second to appreciate the elegance of it all. From nose to lungs, from diaphragm to alveoli, you're participating in a delicate ancient dance, a rhythm shared by nearly every animal on Earth, and all of it begins with a breath. Inside your bloodstream, something remarkable is always happening, an endless, quiet choreography that ensures oxygen, the invisible fuel you just breathed in, actually gets where it needs to go. Because as it turns out, breathing is only the first step. Inhaling oxygen is like receiving a parcel, but now it has to be delivered, and that's where one of the unsung heroes of the human body steps in: hemoglobin. Hemoglobin lives inside your red blood cells, those cheerful little discs that give blood its red colour and that politely zip around your circulatory system every day. Each red blood cell contains about 270 million hemoglobin molecules. That's right, 270 million per cell. And considering you have roughly 20 to 30 trillion red blood cells at any given time, you're essentially a walking, talking oxygen delivery service. Somewhere inside you is a logistics system that would make any shipping company weep with envy. Hemoglobin is a protein, but it's not just any old protein. It's an elegant shape-shifting structure made up of 4 subunits, each with a special iron-containing component called a heme group. It's these heme groups that make all the difference. Iron atoms nestled at the centre of each one act like molecular magnets, each capable of latching onto a single oxygen molecule. When blood flows through your lungs, hemoglobin binds to the incoming oxygen with remarkable efficiency. One by one, the oxygen molecules click into place, turning deoxygenated blood from a dark maroon to a bright cherry red. This colour shift is what makes oxygenated blood look vibrant, and it's also why your lips are pink when you're healthy, and bluish when you're not getting quite enough air. Your body, it turns out, is a living mood ring. Now the clever part is that hemoglobin isn't just good at grabbing oxygen, it's also smart enough to let go of it when and where it's needed. This isn't as simple as it sounds. If hemoglobin clung to oxygen too tightly, your tissues would be starved. If it let go too easily, oxygen might get dropped off in places that don't need it. Thankfully, hemoglobin is wonderfully well behaved. When red blood cells reach parts of your body with lower oxygen levels, like your muscles, brain, or even the tips of your fingers, hemoglobin detects the change. It senses things like acidity, temperature, and carbon dioxide concentration. If a tissue is active and producing waste, hemoglobin takes the hint and releases its oxygen cargo. It's a bit like showing up at a party with snacks and knowing exactly when to hand them out. And here's a fun little quirk. Once the first oxygen molecule binds to hemoglobin, the protein changes shape ever so slightly, making it easier for the second one to attach. That one then helps the third, and the third helps the fourth. It's a cooperative effort, like friends pulling each other into a group hug. And the same applies in reverse. Once hemoglobin starts releasing oxygen, it becomes more willing to let the rest go too. This whole system is so efficient that, under normal conditions, your red blood cells deliver oxygen to your tissues and then return to your lungs with about 75% of their oxygen gone. The rest, it's a little extra, held in reserve in case you suddenly need to run, think hard, or experience a mild panic when you misplace your phone. And speaking of movement, your red blood cells are on a journey. A single red blood cell completes a full circuit through the body in about 1 minute. That means every cell in your body gets a fresh delivery of oxygen over 1,400 times per day. It's like having same-day shipping every single day, forever. Now let's not forget the iron in this whole arrangement. Each of those heme groups depends on a single iron atom to bind oxygen. Without enough iron in your body, your hemoglobin can't function properly. This is what leads to iron deficiency anemia, a condition where you might feel tired, weak, or short of breath. It's not that your lungs aren't working, it's that your oxygen delivery trucks are running low on fuel. Luckily, iron is found in all sorts of foods: red meat, spinach, lentils, tofu, and even fortified cereals, and your body is quite good at absorbing it, especially when you pair it with a bit of vitamin C. So yes, that orange juice with your breakfast isn't just refreshing, it's a biological team player. But let's not overlook just how weird and wonderful hemoglobin truly is. The iron in your hemoglobin is what gives your blood its red colour, something not all animals share. Some creatures, like octopuses and squid, use a different molecule called hemocyanin, which contains copper instead of iron. This gives their blood a blue or green tint. So if you've ever wondered what it would be like to have green blood, just imagine life as a cuttlefish. In some cases, your body might need to tweak its oxygen delivery system to meet unusual demands. For example, when you travel to a high altitude, there's less oxygen in the air. Your body responds by making more red blood cells and producing a hormone called erythropoietin, or EPO for short. This helps boost your oxygen carrying capacity. Athletes have been known to misuse EPO to gain an edge in endurance events, but your body will do it naturally if you hang out on a mountain for a while. Similarly, if you're regularly active, your muscles become better at extracting oxygen from the blood. They grow more capillaries, more mitochondria, and they even get more efficient at using oxygen to make energy. It's like your body slowly upgrades its internal factory based on your lifestyle. There's even something quietly poetic about how hemoglobin works in harmony with carbon dioxide, the waste product your cells make when they burn fuel. As oxygen is delivered and used, carbon dioxide builds up. Hemoglobin helps carry some of it back to the lungs, where it's exhaled, but not all of it. Some carbon dioxide travels dissolved in plasma, and some turns into bicarbonate, helping regulate your blood's pH. In short, hemoglobin is not just a one-trick pony, it's more like a multitasking butler with a knack for chemistry. So next time you feel your heart beating a little faster, or notice your breath quicken, know that deep inside, trillions of red blood cells are swirling through you like tiny lifeboats, each packed with hemoglobin, each delivering its precious cargo. It's not flashy, and it's not loud, but it is vital, and it happens every minute of every hour of every day. Also that the oxygen you once inhaled can reach even the furthest corners of your body, every toe, every fingertip, every single thought. Imagine your bloodstream as an endless winding highway, one with no traffic lights, no stop signs, and no road rage. Just trillions of red blood cells quietly cruising along, carrying oxygen to every corner of your body. But behind this smooth operation is a powerful rhythmic engine that never rests: your heart. Right now, your heart is pumping away, pushing blood through more than 60,000 miles of blood vessels. That's enough to wrap around the planet more than twice. All of that, packed inside your body. It's as if you're carrying a miniature galaxy of highways, tunnels, and side roads, each one carefully mapped to deliver life where it's needed most. At the centre of it all is your heart, a fist-sized muscle that beats around 100,000 times a day. That's over 35 million beats per year. It doesn't take weekends off, doesn't go on holiday, and doesn't even ask for applause. It just keeps working quietly and reliably day and night. The heart is made up of 4 chambers: the right atrium, the right ventricle, the left atrium, and the left ventricle. Blood flows through them in a beautifully orchestrated loop. Deoxygenated blood. Blood that's already delivered its oxygen and picked up carbon dioxide enters the right atrium from the body. It's then pushed into the right ventricle, which pumps it to the lungs through the pulmonary artery. In the lungs, as you already know, blood drops off its carbon dioxide and picks up a fresh supply of oxygen. This newly oxygenated blood then returns to the heart, entering the left atrium. From there, it flows into the left ventricle, which gives it a powerful final push through the aorta, the body's largest artery, and out into the rest of the circulatory system. It's a closed loop, a continuous cycle. Every drop of blood is on a journey, and the heart is the tireless conductor keeping everything in sync. It's like a well-oiled machine, only the oil is blood and the engine never stops running. But getting oxygen to your cells isn't just about having a good pump. It's also about the roads, the vast branching network of arteries, veins and capillaries that carry blood to and from every tissue. Arteries are the highways of the body. They carry oxygen-rich blood away from the heart under high pressure, thanks to the strong contraction of the left ventricle. Their walls are thick and elastic, built to withstand the surge of each heartbeat. You can feel this pulse in your neck, your wrists, and even your ankles, a rhythmic thud that marks the passage of blood with each beat. As arteries branch and divide into smaller arterioles and eventually into capillaries, the pressure decreases and the roads become narrower. Capillaries are the smallest blood vessels in the body, just wide enough for red blood cells to squeeze through one at a time. These tiny vessels are where the magic of exchange happens. Oxygen leaves the blood and enters the cells, while carbon dioxide and other waste products move the other way. This exchange is helped by the extremely thin walls of the capillaries, just 1 cell thick. The close contact between blood and tissue allows for efficient diffusion, like passing notes between neighbours across a low fence. It's quiet, constant, and happening all over your body all the time. Once blood has dropped off its oxygen and picked up waste, it begins the journey back to the heart through the veins. Unlike arteries, veins carry blood under much lower pressure. They have thinner walls, and many are equipped with little one-way valves that prevent blood from flowing backward. These valves are especially important in your legs, where blood has to travel upward against gravity to get back to the heart. Your muscles play a vital role here, acting like pumps that squeeze the veins and help push blood upward. It's one of the reasons why walking and moving regularly is so good for your circulation. You're not just working your legs, you're giving your veins a helping hand. And then there's blood pressure, a measure of the force your blood exerts against the walls of your arteries. You've probably heard numbers like 120/80, which represents systolic and diastolic pressure. Systolic is the higher number, measuring pressure when your heart contracts. Diastolic is the lower number, measuring pressure when the heart relaxes between beats. Maintaining healthy blood pressure is crucial. Too high, and your vessels are under strain, which over time can damage them and increase your risk of heart disease or stroke. Too low, and your tissues might not get enough oxygen. Your body is constantly adjusting, narrowing or widening blood vessels, changing your heart rate, and balancing fluids, all to keep everything flowing smoothly. And it's not just about oxygen either. Your blood carries nutrients from the food you eat, hormones from your glands, immune cells to fight off invaders, and waste products headed for disposal. It's a mobile multitasker, delivering everything you need to stay alive and well. One of the most elegant features of your circulatory system is how it prioritizes. During exercise, more blood is directed to your muscles. After a meal, your digestive organs get more attention. If you're cold, blood retreats from your fingers and toes to conserve heat. If you're hot, it rushes to your skin to release warmth. It's like a smart thermostat built into your body, always fine-tuning and reallocating resources as needed. Of course, like any complex system, it can have its hiccups. Plaque can build up in arteries, restricting flow. Veins can swell and twist, forming varicose veins. Blood clots can form and pose serious risks. But in general, your cardiovascular system is surprisingly resilient. It bends, adapts, and repairs. And with regular movement, balanced nutrition, and a bit of rest, it keeps doing its job remarkably well. It's humbling to think that right now, as you listen, your heart is beating steadily. Your vessels are guiding blood to places you're not even aware of, and oxygen is being exchanged in billions of microscopic transactions every second. You are, quite literally, a living network, and all of it, Every pulse, every vessel, every red blood cell in motion serves one beautiful purpose: to keep oxygen moving. To ensure that the breath you took a few moments ago becomes the energy you need, not just to survive, but to think, to feel, to dream. So go ahead, take another breath. That oxygen's about to go on quite the journey. By the time oxygen reaches your cells, it's travelled an extraordinary distance, from the stars to your lungs into your blood, and finally all the way to the tiniest corners of your body. But the story doesn't end at delivery. This is where the real magic begins, the transformation of oxygen into energy, and the stars of this next act. Tiny powerhouses hiding inside nearly every cell in your body, the mitochondria. Mitochondria are microscopic structures often described as the power plants of the cell. And while that metaphor works, it doesn't quite capture just how beautifully efficient and essential these little organelles are. They're like a million tiny chefs turning ingredients into pure fuel, all while keeping the kitchen spotless and running smoothly. Let's rewind for a moment. When you eat food, your body breaks it down into simple components: sugars, fats, and amino acids. Glucose, a simple sugar, is one of your body's favourite sources of fuel, but glucose alone isn't enough. To unlock its energy, your cells need to burn it, and that's where oxygen comes in. Without oxygen, that glucose just sort of sits there. With oxygen, it becomes a spark. The process is called cellular respiration, and it's nothing like the kind of respiration that happens in your lungs. It's more like a series of microscopic chemical steps, each one designed to harvest energy in manageable, controlled bursts. At the heart of it all is something called ATP, adenosine triphosphate, a molecule that serves as the cell's main energy currency. If your body were a bustling city, ATP would be the cash in every pocket, the electricity in every wire, and the battery in every phone. Here's how it works. First, glucose enters the cell and goes through a process called glycolysis. This step doesn't need oxygen and happens outside the mitochondria. It breaks one molecule of glucose into two smaller molecules called pyruvate, producing a tiny amount of ATP, just enough to keep things going. But once oxygen's available, the real energy generation begins. The pyruvate enters the mitochondria, where it's further processed in a series of steps called the citric acid cycle, also known as the Krebs cycle. This cycle breaks down the molecules even further, releasing carbon dioxide and transferring high-energy electrons to special molecules. These electrons are the real prize. They're handed off to something called the electron transport chain, a series of protein complexes embedded in the inner membrane of the mitochondria. As the electrons move down the chain, they release energy, which is used to pump protons across the membrane and create a gradient, a sort of biological dam full of potential energy. Then, in a final elegant move, those protons flow back across the membrane through an enzyme called ATP synthase, which uses their movement to produce ATP. It's a bit like water turning a turbine. The result? From just one molecule of glucose and plenty of oxygen, your cell can produce around 30 to 38 molecules of ATP. That's a huge leap from the paltry 2 ATP you get from glycolysis alone. Oxygen, it turns out, is what makes this entire process efficient. Without it, the electron transport chain stalls, the dam can't form, the turbine can't turn, and your energy production becomes sluggish and incomplete. When cells don't have enough oxygen, they switch to anaerobic respiration, a sort of emergency backup system. It's less efficient and creates lactic acid as a byproduct, which can cause that familiar burning sensation in your muscles during intense exercise. It's not harmful in small doses, and your body clears it out fairly quickly. But it's a reminder. Your cells prefer life with oxygen. It's cleaner, more productive, and far more comfortable. Now, while mitochondria exist in nearly all your cells, some tissues are more packed with them than others. Your brain, for example, uses a tremendous amount of energy, around 20% of your body's total, despite only weighing about 3 pounds. That means its cells are absolutely loaded with mitochondria. Your muscles too, especially those used for endurance activities like walking or breathing, have high mitochondrial density. The more work a cell has to do, the more mitochondria it houses. And in a beautiful twist of biology, mitochondria aren't just fuel factories, they're also ancient. Scientists believe that billions of years ago, mitochondria were once free-living bacteria that got swallowed by larger cells. Instead of being digested, they formed a partnership, a symbiosis. The host cell provided protection and nutrients, and the mitochondria offered efficient energy production. Over time, this partnership became permanent. Today, mitochondria even have their own tiny strands of DNA, a relic of their bacterial past. So in a way, each of your cells carries a reminder of your evolutionary history, tiny ancient power plants working in harmony with modern biology. It's a little like your phone having a hamster wheel inside it, but with better Wi-Fi and no pellets. Of course, with great power comes the occasional reactive oxygen species. These are unstable molecules that form as a byproduct of oxygen use. Think of them as chemical sparks from the mitochondria's furnace. In small amounts, your cells handle them just fine, but if they build up, they can damage cellular components. Thankfully, your body has antioxidant defenses to mop them up and keep things running smoothly. In fact, a balanced production of reactive oxygen species is normal, and even useful. Your body uses them to signal for cell repair, immune response, and other vital processes. It's only when balance tips too far, due to chronic stress, pollution or illness, that problems arise. But under normal conditions, your mitochondria hum along quietly, managing both power and cleanup like seasoned professionals. It's easy to take this all for granted. You don't feel your mitochondria at work. You don't hear them, or see them, or even notice when they produce ATP. But they are working constantly, without applause or complaint. They are the reason you can walk, think, laugh, blink, dream, and even the reason you're able to listen to this right now. So take a moment to appreciate what's happening inside you. With every breath you take, oxygen travels to your cells, and inside those cells, tiny ancient engines flicker to life, using that oxygen to transform food into the energy that keeps you going. No explosions, no sound, no sparks, just quiet, constant creation, a soft power flowing within. Now that oxygen has been used to create energy deep within your cells, there's a little something left behind: carbon dioxide. It's the molecular equivalent of empty coffee cups after a productive work session. Your cells, having busily converted glucose and oxygen into ATP, are now sitting with a pile of metabolic waste they'd very much like to get rid of. Enter the Great Return Journey. Carbon dioxide, or CO2, isn't just something you breathe out. It's the natural consequence of your cells working hard to keep you alive. Every time a mitochondrion completes a cycle of respiration, it creates carbon dioxide as a byproduct. This gas diffuses out of your cells and into the surrounding fluid, then slips into nearby capillaries, catching a ride back to your lungs through the bloodstream. Now, here's where things get clever. Carbon dioxide isn't transported in the blood in just one way. It's carried in 3 different forms. About 5% of it dissolves directly into your blood plasma, floating around like a guest at a very relaxed pool party. Around 10% binds directly to hemoglobin, the same protein responsible for carrying oxygen, but at a different site. Hemoglobin, it turns out, is something of a multitasker. But the vast majority, around 85%, is converted into something else entirely: bicarbonate. This transformation happens inside red blood cells thanks to an enzyme called carbonic anhydrase. The enzyme helps combine carbon dioxide with water, forming carbonic acid, which quickly breaks apart into bicarbonate and hydrogen ions. The bicarbonate then exits the red blood cell and floats freely in the plasma, ready to travel. It's a bit like packing carbon dioxide into a chemical suitcase for a more convenient journey. This process isn't just about transport. It's also essential for maintaining the pH balance of your blood. The human body is incredibly picky when it comes to acidity. Your blood's pH needs to stay within a narrow range, between 7.35 and 7.45. If it veers too far in either direction, enzymes stop working properly, cells can become damaged, and things start to go a little haywire. Bicarbonate acts as a buffer, helping keep everything in balance. It's one of the many quiet behind-the-scenes systems keeping your internal environment just right, even as you go about your day completely unaware. As carbon dioxide-rich blood flows back to the lungs, a marvellous reversal begins. The bicarbonate is pulled back into red blood cells, where it's converted once again into carbon dioxide. The hemoglobin releases the carbon dioxide it was holding onto, and even that small percentage floating freely in the plasma makes its way to the lungs. The collective result? A high concentration of carbon dioxide near the alveoli, the tiny air sacs in your lungs. And now, just like oxygen once diffused into the blood, carbon dioxide diffuses out. From blood to alveoli, it moves across the delicate membrane with ease, guided by simple differences in concentration. It's passive, effortless, and remarkably effective. With your next exhale, that carbon dioxide leaves your body, out through the bronchioles, up the trachea, past the larynx, through your mouth or nose and back into the world. It may end up nourishing a plant, floating toward the sky, or even joining the atmosphere's carbon cycle, a journey all its own. This continuous exchange, oxygen in, carbon dioxide out, is known as external respiration, and it's happening right now. As you listen, your lungs are rhythmically contracting and relaxing. You're quite literally breathing life in and letting go of the leftovers. But carbon dioxide doesn't just play a passive role in the story, it's also one of the key signals your body uses to control breathing. You might think your body monitors oxygen levels to decide when to breathe, but actually it's carbon dioxide that calls the shots most of the time. When you hold your breath, for example, the discomfort you feel isn't because of a lack of oxygen. It's because carbon dioxide is building up in your blood. As the concentration rises, it triggers chemoreceptors in your brainstem and major arteries, essentially ringing an alarm bell. The longer you resist, the louder the bell gets. Eventually, the pressure to exhale becomes irresistible. Your body is gently but firmly encouraging you to maintain balance. This system is finely tuned. If carbon dioxide levels dip too low, say from rapid, shallow breathing during stress, your blood can become too alkaline. This is known as respiratory alkalosis, and it can lead to symptoms like lightheadedness, tingling fingers, and even fainting. It's why people sometimes breathe into a paper bag during a panic attack, to rebreathe their own carbon dioxide and restore balance. On the flip side, if carbon dioxide levels rise too high, the condition is called hypercapnia. It can happen with certain respiratory illnesses or under extreme conditions like deep-sea diving. In either case, the body responds with urgency, adjusting heart rate, breathing rate, and blood vessel diameter to stabilize everything once more. Despite being a waste product, carbon dioxide is never treated like garbage. It's carefully measured, transported, buffered, converted, and released, all with quiet precision. It even has useful roles outside of the bloodstream. In the brain, increased carbon dioxide levels can cause blood vessels to dilate, improving oxygen delivery during periods of intense mental activity. In the lungs, carbon dioxide helps regulate airflow to different regions, ensuring that well-ventilated areas get more blood flow. And in a beautiful bit of teamwork, your breathing muscles, like the diaphragm and intercostals, respond instantly to these changes. The more carbon dioxide in your system, the more those muscles contract, drawing in air with deeper, faster breaths. When levels return to normal, your breathing slows again. It's a constant loop of gentle regulation, like a tide rising and falling with invisible precision. Even while you sleep, this system works flawlessly. Your breathing becomes slower, more regular, and carbon dioxide continues its quiet exit, ensuring you wake up refreshed and balanced. You don't have to think about it. Your body has it handled, so the next time you exhale, take a moment to appreciate what's leaving. That breath carries more than just air. It carries the end of a journey. Oxygen came in, powered your cells, and left behind carbon dioxide as a thank you note. And now, with every soft exhale, your body releases what it no longer needs. It's a lesson in simplicity. Breathe in what sustains you. Breathe out what you're ready to let go, again and again. Effortless, timeless, beautiful. Your brain is a curious little thing. It weighs just about 3 pounds, yet it consumes roughly 1/5 of all the oxygen your body uses. That's right. Around 20% of every breath you take is immediately claimed by the soft, squishy control center at the top of your spine. For something that looks a bit like a wrinkled lump of tofu, it's surprisingly demanding. So why does your brain need so much oxygen? Well, for starters, it's always busy. Even when you're lying still, eyes closed, seemingly doing nothing at all, your brain is a hive of quiet activity. It's processing memories, regulating body temperature, balancing hormones, and perhaps most importantly, making sure your heart keeps beating and your lungs keep breathing. It's the ultimate behind-the-scenes manager. Neurons, the brain's main type of cell, are especially hungry for oxygen. Each of them communicates with other neurons using tiny electrical and chemical signals, and this process requires a tremendous amount of energy. Unlike other cells in your body, neurons don't really store fuel for later. They rely on a constant, uninterrupted supply of oxygen and glucose to do their job. Even a brief pause in oxygen delivery can spell trouble. In fact, your brain is so oxygen sensitive that it starts to react within seconds if the supply is interrupted. After just 5 to 10 seconds without oxygen, you may lose consciousness. After 3 to 5 minutes, brain cells begin to suffer irreversible damage. That's why medical emergencies involving the brain, like strokes, where blood flow is cut off, are so serious. Every second counts because every second the brain is burning through its fuel. But under normal healthy conditions, the brain is a marvel of oxygen management. Blood vessels in the brain are incredibly responsive, adjusting in real time to changes in oxygen levels. If one area of your brain becomes more active, say because you're reading, solving a puzzle, or just reminiscing about where you left your car keys, blood flow increases to that region, delivering more oxygen. This is called neurovascular coupling, and it's the reason functional MRI machines can map brain activity by tracking blood flow. The body also has a built-in priority system. If you start to run low on oxygen, whether due to holding your breath, being at a high altitude, or having a respiratory condition, your body will redirect blood flow toward your brain, heart, and other vital organs. Less critical areas, like your digestive system or fingertips, can temporarily take a back seat. It's the biological equivalent of dimming the lights in the hallway to keep the living room cozy. And here's something especially fascinating. Your brain doesn't just use oxygen to keep itself alive, it uses oxygen to help you think. Complex cognitive tasks like decision-making, problem-solving, creativity, and even dreaming all rely on oxygen-powered brain circuits. If oxygen levels drop, you might feel foggy, dizzy, or unable to concentrate. It's as if your mind is gently tapping the brakes, urging you to slow down and breathe. This is why taking a deep breath during stressful moments can feel so grounding. You're not just calming your emotions, you're delivering more oxygen to your brain, helping it work through whatever you're dealing with. Your body instinctively knows what it needs. Of course, not all oxygen use is equal throughout the brain. Some regions are busier than others depending on what you're doing. The visual cortex lights up when you're looking at something. The motor cortex fires when you move your body. The prefrontal cortex becomes active when you're planning, thinking critically, or reminding yourself not to send that email written in all caps. Then there's the brainstem, perhaps the most ancient and essential part of the brain. It handles things like breathing, heart rate, and consciousness, all without you needing to think about it. It's also particularly sensitive to carbon dioxide levels in the blood. triggering adjustments to your breathing when it senses things are out of balance. If carbon dioxide rises, the brainstem nudges your respiratory muscles to breathe faster and deeper, helping restore equilibrium. Interestingly, your brain also responds to oxygen availability during sleep. As you drift off, your breathing becomes more regular, and your brain activity enters different stages. During REM sleep, when dreaming is most vivid, the brain can be surprisingly active, sometimes using as much oxygen as when you're awake. That might explain why dreams can feel so intense or emotionally charged. Your brain is working overtime, replaying, reshuffling, and perhaps even quietly solving problems. Sleep disorders like sleep apnea interfere with this process. In sleep apnea, the airway becomes partially or completely blocked during sleep, leading to drops in oxygen levels and repeated awakenings, often without the sleeper even realizing it. Over time, this can lead to fatigue, poor memory, and difficulty concentrating during the day. It's yet another example of just how much your brain depends on a steady stream of oxygen, even while you're not conscious of it. But the brain isn't just a passive recipient of oxygen, it actively protects its supply. It does this with the blood-brain barrier, a selective filtering system that lines the brain's blood vessels and keeps harmful substances out while allowing oxygen and other essentials to pass through. It's like having an exclusive velvet rope around your neurons, with oxygen always on the guest list. The blood-brain barrier is incredibly effective, but it also presents challenges for medicine. Many drugs and treatments can't cross it, which is why treating brain diseases and injuries can be so tricky. But oxygen flows in freely, welcomed like an old friend. And here's a lovely little detail. Your brain can adapt to changes in oxygen over time. People who live at high altitudes, where the air is thinner, often develop more red blood cells and more efficient oxygen use in the brain. Their bodies become quietly optimized for lower oxygen environments, demonstrating just how adaptable the human brain and body truly is. Even mindfulness practices such as meditation and slow breathing exercises can subtly influence oxygen delivery. When you breathe deeply and calmly, your heart rate slows, blood vessels relax, and oxygen-rich blood flows more easily through your brain. That's one of the reasons these practices are associated with clearer thinking and emotional calm. You're not just relaxing, you're giving your brain exactly what it wants. So the next time you feel overwhelmed or mentally scattered, try taking a slow breath in and then a longer breath out. Let your shoulders drop. Let your jaw unclench. Your brain is always there, always listening, always waiting for its next gentle wave of oxygen. That little breath might be invisible, but for your brain, it's everything. Let's imagine you've just stood up from your chair, stretched your arms overhead, and decided to take a short walk. Something so simple, just a stroll around the room or a walk to the kitchen, triggers an intricate cascade of oxygen-powered motion. Muscles contract and release in coordinated bursts, your heart rate ticks upward, your lungs expand a little deeper, and your blood vessels shift into a higher gear. It's a quiet symphony, and oxygen is conducting the whole thing. Muscles, like your brain, are heavy oxygen users. At rest, your body devotes a modest portion of its oxygen supply to maintaining your muscles. But the moment you start moving, their demand increases dramatically. Even a slow, gentle walk requires more oxygen than sitting still, and the harder you push, say, jogging up a flight of stairs or dancing around the living room, the more oxygen your muscles demand. That demand is met by increasing both the rate and depth of your breathing. You start to inhale more frequently and more fully, drawing in larger amounts of air with each breath. At the same time, your heart beats faster to circulate oxygen-rich blood more quickly to the muscles in action. It's an elegant and immediate response, built into your body by millions of years of evolution, your own in-house delivery system going express. Now let's take a closer look inside the muscle cells themselves. Just like brain cells, muscle cells rely on mitochondria to generate energy. The more oxygen they receive, the more ATP they can produce, powering contractions and keeping your movements smooth and efficient. This is what's known as aerobic metabolism, energy production with oxygen. During low to moderate activity, like walking, light cycling or slow yoga flows, your muscles primarily rely on this oxygen-powered pathway. It's efficient, sustainable, and relatively clean in terms of waste products. As long as oxygen supply keeps pace with demand, you can keep going comfortably for a long time. But let's say you decide to sprint to catch a bus, lift something heavy, or chase after an especially fast dog. Suddenly, your muscles need energy faster than your lungs and heart can keep up. In those brief intense moments, your body switches to anaerobic metabolism, a backup plan that doesn't require oxygen right away. It quickly breaks down glucose stored in your muscles for immediate energy. The catch: this process produces lactic acid as a byproduct. You might feel it as a burning sensation in your muscles or a sense of fatigue setting in. It's not harmful in small doses, and your body can clear it out over time, but it's a clear signal that your muscles are operating in high gear. Once the intense activity slows down, your body enters what's called an oxygen debt. You might find yourself breathing more heavily, even after you've stopped moving. That's your body paying back what it borrowed, restocking its oxygen levels, clearing out waste and recharging those hard-working muscle cells. And here's the beauty of it. The more you move, the better your body becomes at managing oxygen. Regular physical activity encourages the growth of new blood vessels in your muscles, increases the number of mitochondria in your cells, and improves the efficiency of oxygen delivery and use. Essentially, your muscles become more oxygen savvy. They learn to stretch their resources and keep you moving longer, stronger, and with less fatigue. In fact, elite endurance athletes often have double or even triple the mitochondrial density in their muscles compared to non-athletes. Their bodies are trained to use oxygen with almost surgical precision, extracting every last bit of energy from each molecule. But even modest activity, like taking the stairs, going for a daily walk, or stretching before bed, can improve your oxygen efficiency over time. And it's not just about energy. Oxygen plays a crucial role in repairing and maintaining your muscles too. After a workout, your body needs oxygen to heal micro tears in muscle fibers, synthesize proteins, and clear away cellular debris. The soreness you might feel the day after a new activity, that's your body in the process of rebuilding, quietly, steadily, and with oxygen lending a helping hand. Now you might wonder why we don't just use anaerobic metabolism all the time if it's so fast. The answer comes down to efficiency and sustainability. Aerobic metabolism, with oxygen, produces up to 38 molecules of ATP from a single glucose molecule. Anaerobic metabolism produces just 2. It's like the difference between sipping a full glass of water and trying to drink from a thimble. One works long term, the other is only good in a pinch. Even your posture and breathing during movement affect how efficiently oxygen reaches your muscles. Standing tall with relaxed shoulders and an open chest allows your lungs to expand fully, maximizing oxygen intake. Tension, poor posture, or shallow breathing can limit how much air you draw in, which in turn limits how much oxygen reaches your bloodstream. This is one of the reasons why activities like yoga, tai chi, or walking meditations can feel so refreshing. They encourage deep, intentional breathing and smooth, rhythmic motion, an ideal environment for oxygen to flow freely and do its work. It's also why warming up and cooling down matter. A gentle warm-up prepares your muscles and cardiovascular system for the increased oxygen demand to come, while a cool-down gives your body time to return to baseline, clearing out byproducts like carbon dioxide and lactic acid, and easing your breathing and heart rate back to their resting state. Even sleep plays a role in muscle recovery. During deep stages of sleep, your body increases blood flow to muscles, delivering oxygen and nutrients to aid in repair. It's part of why a good night's rest can make sore muscles feel so much better. While you dream, your body is quietly healing itself, powered by breath. So the next time you stretch your arms, take a walk, or even just shift positions in your seat, remember, oxygen is moving with you. It's fueling your muscles, supporting your balance, and enabling every graceful, or awkward step you take. Whether you're dancing, hiking, or simply reaching for the TV remote, oxygen is there, quietly showing up in every move you make. It may be invisible, but it's indispensable, a faithful companion in motion. Let's imagine you're climbing a mountain. Not metaphorically, but an actual towering mass of rock and sky. With every step, the air feels thinner, your breathing becomes deeper, and your muscles begin to protest just a little. This is not your imagination. There is literally less oxygen available at higher altitudes. The air is still there, of course, but the oxygen molecules are spaced further apart. Like guests at a party who decided to sit on opposite sides of the room, you're still breathing in the same 21% oxygen, but the total number of oxygen molecules per breath has dropped. At sea level, every breath contains enough oxygen to satisfy your body's needs without much fuss. But climb above about 8,000 feet, or roughly 2.5 kilometers, and the difference becomes noticeable. The oxygen pressure in the air is lower, and your body has to adapt, or at least make a valiant effort to do so. The first response is immediate. You breathe faster. Your lungs draw in more air to compensate for the drop in oxygen per breath. Your heart speeds up, pumping more blood in the hope of getting more oxygen to your tissues. This is why you might feel out of breath just tying your shoelaces on a mountaintop. Your body is trying its best with limited resources, like a chef making a full-course meal with only 2 carrots and a potato. But adaptation doesn't stop at breathing harder. Within a matter of hours, your kidneys start adjusting the balance of acids and bases in your blood to make it easier for hemoglobin to pick up oxygen. Over the next few days, your body starts producing more red blood cells, a process stimulated by a hormone called erythropoietin, or EPO for short. This increases the oxygen carrying capacity of your blood, like adding more buses to a crowded public transport system. People who live at high altitudes, like the Andean highlanders of South America or the Sherpa communities in the Himalayas, have inherited adaptations from generations of high-altitude living. Their bodies are remarkably efficient at using oxygen. Some produce more hemoglobin, others have increased blood flow, and some have even developed unique genetic traits that help with oxygen delivery at the cellular level. It's a fascinating example of human biology responding to environmental challenge over time. But altitude isn't the only condition that tests our oxygen delivery system. Take, for example, the experience of diving underwater. The moment your face hits cold water, your body kicks into what's called the diving reflex, a collection of responses that prioritize oxygen for the brain and heart. Your heart rate slows, blood vessels in your limbs constrict, and blood is redirected to your core. It's an ancient reflex shared with seals and whales that helps conserve oxygen during submersion. Freedivers, those brave individuals who dive without oxygen tanks, train their bodies to tolerate low oxygen levels and high carbon dioxide buildup. Some can hold their breath for over 10 minutes. They rely on slow heart rates, increased blood volume, and well-trained lungs to stretch every molecule of oxygen as far as it will go. And then there are animals who make our efforts look modest. Bar-headed geese, for instance, fly over the Himalayas during migration, soaring at altitudes above 29,000 feet, where the oxygen pressure is barely 1/3 that of sea level. Their secret: exceptionally efficient hemoglobin and powerful lungs that extract oxygen with astonishing precision. It's a reminder that life finds a way to stretch biology to its limits. But humans are pretty impressive in our own right. With training, we can acclimatize to high altitudes, dive deep underwater, and even push the boundaries of oxygen use through endurance sports. Athletes often train at high altitudes to stimulate the production of red blood cells, improving performance when they return to sea level. This kind of live high, train low approach is based on the idea that increased oxygen capacity leads to better stamina and recovery. The reverse is also true. When your body is deprived of oxygen long term, it responds by trying to improve efficiency. People with chronic respiratory conditions, such as chronic obstructive pulmonary disease, may develop changes in their circulatory and muscular systems that help them cope with lower oxygen levels. Their bodies make do with less, adapting in subtle and complex ways. Even inside your muscles, there's room for adjustment. Regular aerobic exercise encourages the growth of more mitochondria, capillaries, and enzymes that help process oxygen. Over time, your muscles become more adept at extracting oxygen from the blood and using it to generate energy. It's like upgrading your engine and fuel system without replacing the car. On the flip side, oxygen can also become too abundant in certain situations. Breathing pure oxygen at high pressures, like in hyperbaric oxygen chambers or deep-sea diving, can actually be harmful over time. This condition, called oxygen toxicity, can damage lung tissues, cause seizures, and lead to other complications. It's a strange thought, but even life-giving oxygen in excess can become dangerous. As with most things in biology, balance is everything. Hyperbaric oxygen therapy, however, is sometimes used in controlled medical settings. It helps treat conditions like carbon monoxide poisoning, decompression sickness, and certain types of chronic wounds. In these cases, a temporary dose of high-pressure oxygen can stimulate healing and reduce damage. Our relationship with oxygen, then, is not static. It shifts and bends depending on the environment, our health, and what we ask our bodies to do. Whether we're climbing mountains, diving into the ocean, or simply jogging through the park, our systems are constantly adjusting, breathing more, pumping faster, fine-tuning hemoglobin, or even growing more cells, all in an effort to meet the needs of the moment. And all of this happens without you needing to think about it. You don't have to remind your kidneys to release EPO, or instruct your red blood cells to hold on tighter to oxygen at high altitudes. Your body just knows. It adapts, recalibrates, and carries on, quietly keeping you going, even when conditions are less than ideal. So next time you find yourself catching your breath after climbing a hill, take a moment to marvel at what your body is doing behind the scenes. It's adjusting, recalculating, and redistributing resources with quiet intelligence. Oxygen might not always be in abundant supply, but your body is a master at making the most of every breath. Whether you're 2 feet above sea level or 20,000 feet above the clouds, that same ancient partnership is still at work. You and oxygen, always finding a way. Oxygen, for all its life-giving beauty, has a fragile relationship with the human body. When everything is working well, it feels like magic, an invisible stream of vitality humming through every breath, every heartbeat, every cell. But sometimes that balance can tip, and when it does, the body's relationship with oxygen begins to strain, falter, and in some cases, break down. Let's begin with one of the most common issues, asthma. Imagine your lungs as a vast network of airways, branching and narrowing until they end in tiny, delicate sacs called alveoli. In someone with asthma, these airways can become inflamed and overly sensitive to triggers, things like dust, pollen, cold air, or exercise. When exposed, the muscles around the airways tighten, the lining swells, and mucus production ramps up. All of this narrows the passageways, making it harder for air, and by extension oxygen, to flow freely. The result? Breathlessness, wheezing, tightness in the chest, and a feeling not unlike trying to breathe through a straw. In most cases, asthma is manageable with medications like bronchodilators and inhaled steroids. These help open the airways and reduce inflammation, restoring the smooth passage of oxygen. But during a severe asthma attack, oxygen levels in the blood can drop dangerously low, making immediate intervention essential. Then there's chronic obstructive pulmonary disease, or COPD for short, a long-term condition that primarily affects smokers and people exposed to significant air pollution. COPD is a bit of a catch-all term that includes chronic bronchitis and emphysema, both of which damage the lungs in different ways. In chronic bronchitis, the airways become swollen and produce excess mucus. In emphysema, the walls of the alveoli break down, reducing the surface area available for oxygen exchange. Imagine trying to inflate a balloon that's full of holes. It's a frustrating, ineffective process. For someone with COPD, every breath is a bit like that. Oxygen gets in, but not efficiently, and carbon dioxide lingers longer than it should. Over time, this imbalance can make everyday activities like climbing stairs or walking across the room feel exhausting. Then there's anemia, a condition that has little to do with the lungs at all, but everything to do with oxygen. In anemia, the issue lies in the blood itself, specifically in the red blood cells or the hemoglobin they carry. If your body doesn't have enough red blood cells, or if the hemoglobin inside them is faulty or deficient, often due to low iron, vitamin B12, or chronic disease, then oxygen transport is compromised. Even if your lungs are working perfectly and you're breathing in plenty of oxygen, there simply aren't enough delivery trucks to carry it to your tissues. The result? Fatigue, weakness, pale skin, and sometimes a feeling like you're short of breath despite normal breathing patterns. It's a bit like hiring 100 waiters for a banquet, only to find you've cooked food for 1,000 guests. The oxygen is there, but the infrastructure can't keep up. Another group of conditions that interfere with oxygen's journey are vascular diseases, disorders that affect the blood vessels. In conditions like atherosclerosis, the arteries become narrowed or hardened due to plaque buildup. This restricts blood flow and, by extension, oxygen delivery. If a vessel becomes completely blocked, it can cause a heart attack or stroke, cutting off oxygen supply entirely to parts of the heart or brain. The damage can happen in minutes, quickly, silently, and sometimes without warning. One particularly dramatic failure of oxygen delivery is a stroke, where blood flow to part of the brain is interrupted. There are two main types: ischemic, caused by a clot blocking a vessel, and hemorrhagic, caused by a vessel bursting. Either way, the result is the same: brain cells begin to die without oxygen. It's why the phrase "time is brain" is so commonly used in stroke care. The faster blood flow is restored, the more brain tissue can be saved. Then there are situations where oxygen's available, but the body simply can't use it correctly. This can happen in cases of carbon monoxide poisoning. Carbon monoxide is an invisible, odourless gas that binds to hemoglobin far more readily than oxygen does. About 200 times more readily, in fact. Once it takes up residence, oxygen can't get a seat on the hemoglobin bus. The result is tissue suffocation, even in an environment with plenty of fresh air. Victims of carbon monoxide poisoning often don't realise what's happening until symptoms, like headache, dizziness, or confusion, begin to set in. Cyanide poisoning is another chilling example. Unlike carbon monoxide, cyanide doesn't prevent oxygen from reaching the cells. It blocks the cells from using it. It essentially disables the mitochondria, the very structures that turn oxygen into energy. The oxygen is present, but useless. It's like handing someone a key to a locked door and then melting the lock. In medical settings, we sometimes have to intervene to help people with low oxygen levels. One common treatment is supplemental oxygen therapy, where patients are given extra oxygen through a mask or nasal cannula. This is used for conditions ranging from pneumonia and COVID-19 to heart failure and acute trauma. Oxygen therapy can buy time, helping the body recover or stabilise until the underlying issue is resolved. In more severe cases, particularly in intensive care, mechanical ventilation may be required. This involves using a machine to assist or completely take over the process of breathing. It ensures that oxygen continues to enter the body and carbon dioxide is removed, even if the lungs or muscles are too weak to do it on their own. And then there's ECMO, extracorporeal membrane oxygenation. This is a last resort treatment used when both the lungs and heart are severely failing. Blood is pumped out of the body, oxygenated through an artificial lung, and returned. It's a remarkable technology, often used for patients recovering from heart surgery, trauma, or severe respiratory infections. It's complex, invasive, and resource-intensive, but sometimes it saves lives when nothing else can. Despite all these possible complications, it's worth remembering that the body is incredibly resilient. In many cases with treatment, rest, or simple lifestyle changes, people with oxygen-related conditions can recover, adapt, and thrive. The systems that deliver oxygen are not fragile. They're adaptable, responsive, and deeply interconnected. Every breath you take passes through filters, pumps, pipelines, and microscopic engines, all working quietly in the background. When one part of the system falters, others try to pick up the slack, and when medicine is needed, it works with those systems, not against them. Oxygen is life, yes, but life is also resourceful. It finds new pathways, it adjusts, it recovers. So if your breath has ever felt short, your chest tight, or your body weary, know that it's not weakness. It's your body calling for attention, asking for care, and doing its best with the tools it has. Every breath is still a step forward. Every cell is still trying. And with the right support, be it rest, medication, or simply time, oxygen always finds its way home. Oxygen, for all its quiet consistency, can also be the subject of some of the most remarkable interventions in modern medicine. When things go wrong, when lungs falter, when blood flow is compromised, or when the body struggles to maintain its delicate internal balance, doctors and scientists step in with a toolkit built on centuries of discovery. From simple nasal tubes to machines that oxygenate your blood outside your body, the ways we manage and support oxygen in the modern world are both astonishing and deeply reassuring. Let's begin with something familiar: supplemental oxygen therapy. You've probably seen someone wearing a nasal cannula, a small flexible tube that rests under the nose and delivers a gentle stream of oxygen. This is often used for people with chronic respiratory conditions like chronic obstructive pulmonary disease, pneumonia, or even during recovery from COVID-19. The goal is simple: increase the amount of oxygen in the air the person breathes, so their lungs can absorb more with each breath. Hospitals also use face masks or oxygen hoods to deliver higher concentrations when needed. The air we normally breathe contains about 21% oxygen, but with therapy, that concentration can be increased significantly, sometimes to 60% or more. In urgent cases, patients may breathe nearly pure oxygen for a short time. This boosts the amount of oxygen in the blood and can be life-saving in situations like carbon monoxide poisoning or severe trauma. But what if oxygen therapy alone isn't enough? That's when we turn to mechanical ventilation. This is used when someone's lungs can no longer keep up with the body's needs, whether due to injury, illness, or complications from surgery. A ventilator gently pushes air into the lungs, either through a mask or a tube inserted into the windpipe. It controls the rate, depth, and sometimes even the composition of each breath, ensuring that oxygen is delivered and carbon dioxide is removed, even if the person is unconscious or unable to breathe on their own. Mechanical ventilation can be used for hours, days, or even weeks depending on the situation. In intensive care units, it becomes a lifeline, giving the lungs time to rest and heal while keeping the rest of the body stable. Now imagine a situation where even ventilation isn't enough, where the lungs are too damaged or the heart is too weak to keep up. This is where a truly extraordinary technology comes in: extracorporeal membrane oxygenation, or ECMO. ECMO is like a pause button for the lungs and heart. Blood is pumped out of the body, passed through a machine that adds oxygen and removes carbon dioxide, and then returned. It essentially acts as an artificial lung, and sometimes an artificial heart as well. It's used in extreme cases: newborns with underdeveloped lungs, adults with severe pneumonia, people recovering from heart surgery or massive trauma. ECMO is complex and requires a highly trained team, but it can be the difference between life and death. Another technique with a long and fascinating history is hyperbaric oxygen therapy. This involves placing a person in a sealed chamber where the air pressure is higher than normal and the person breathes pure oxygen. Under these conditions, oxygen dissolves more readily into the blood plasma, not just riding along with red blood cells, but actually saturating the liquid part of the blood itself. Hyperbaric therapy is used to treat a range of conditions, decompression sickness in divers, carbon monoxide poisoning, stubborn wounds, certain infections, and even severe burns. It's a vivid example of how manipulating pressure and oxygen concentration can trigger healing in places where the body needs a little extra help. In recent years, medical researchers have been exploring new ways to manage oxygen delivery even more precisely. For example, there are portable oxygen concentrators, small devices that pull in ambient air, remove nitrogen, and deliver a concentrated stream of oxygen. These are a game changer for people with chronic lung disease, allowing them to stay mobile and active while receiving the oxygen they need. Then there's the world of artificial blood substitutes. While still experimental, scientists are developing substances that can carry oxygen without the need for actual red blood cells. These substitutes could one day be used in trauma situations, where blood transfusions aren't available or practical, such as in remote areas, on battlefields, or during mass casualty events. The idea is to mimic hemoglobin's oxygen-carrying ability in a stable, easily stored form, a kind of bottled breath for emergencies. Pulse oximeters, those little devices that clip onto your finger and display a glowing number, are another quiet marvel of modern oxygen monitoring. They work by shining light through your skin and measuring how much is absorbed by oxygenated and deoxygenated blood. From this, the device calculates your blood's oxygen saturation, how full your hemoglobin is with oxygen. It's quick, painless, and incredibly useful for monitoring patients in hospitals, at home, or even at high altitudes. During the COVID-19 pandemic, pulse oximeters became household tools, helping people track their oxygen levels and detect early signs of trouble, sometimes even before they felt short of breath. In that sense, oxygen monitoring became personal, no longer just something for doctors and nurses, but for anyone with a little clip and a curious finger. And speaking of breathing trouble, another increasingly used technique is non-invasive ventilation, such as CPAP and BIPAP machines. These deliver pressurized air through a mask and are often used to treat sleep apnea, a condition where breathing repeatedly stops during sleep. By keeping the airways open, these machines ensure a steady supply of oxygen and reduce the strain on the heart and lungs. Non-invasive methods are also used in hospitals for patients who need help breathing, but aren't yet critical enough to require intubation. They represent a more comfortable, less invasive way to support oxygenation, giving patients a chance to recover while still breathing on their own. All of these therapies and tools reflect the same goal: to support, supplement, or restore the flow of oxygen. Whether it's a simple nasal cannula or a complex ECMO machine, each intervention is a carefully designed response to the body's most essential need. And yet, despite all this technology, there's still something wonderfully simple and profound about oxygen. It doesn't need to be manufactured. It doesn't come with a label. It's just there, waiting in the air, ready to be used. Our job, as human beings and as medical professionals, is to make sure it gets where it needs to go. Sometimes that means delivering it more directly. Sometimes it means helping the body do a better job on its own. But always it means honouring the quiet, unseen work that oxygen does in every moment. So next time you see someone with an oxygen tank or spot a little pulse oximeter on a hospital bedside, remember, that small number, that clear tube, that quiet hiss of air, it's all part of a vast, compassionate effort to support life, one breath at a time. Because even when things go wrong, oxygen has help, and so do you. Oxygen may be essential to your everyday life, but it hasn't always been Earth's star player. In fact, for much of our planet's early history, oxygen wasn't just scarce, it was toxic to most living organisms. Life began, thrived, and diversified for over 1 billion years, in a world almost entirely devoid of the stuff you now breathe in without a second thought. To understand oxygen's full story, we need to go back to the beginning. Not just the beginning of humans or even animals, but the very start of life itself. The earliest life forms on Earth appeared around 3.5 billion years ago. These were single-celled organisms, simple, sturdy, and entirely anaerobic. That means they didn't use oxygen. In fact, oxygen would have been deeply unpleasant for them. Back then, Earth's atmosphere was a mix of methane, ammonia, and other gases, and these ancient microbes thrived in environments we'd now call downright unbreathable. But then came the cyanobacteria. About 2.5 billion years ago, these tiny aquatic microorganisms discovered photosynthesis, a way of turning sunlight, water, and carbon dioxide into energy. As a byproduct of this process, they released oxygen. At first, that oxygen didn't accumulate in the air. It reacted with iron in the oceans, forming rust and sinking to the sea floor. But eventually, the iron was used up. There was nowhere else for the oxygen to go, so it started building up in the atmosphere. This led to what scientists call the Great Oxygenation Event. It sounds a bit like a galactic music festival, but it was actually a long, slow, and rather dramatic transformation of Earth's atmosphere. Oxygen levels began to rise, and while that may sound like a happy ending, it was anything but. For the organisms that had evolved to live without oxygen, it was catastrophic. Entire microbial communities were wiped out. For them, this pollution spelled the end, but not for everyone. Some organisms adapted. A few developed mechanisms to survive in the presence of oxygen. Over time, life didn't just tolerate oxygen, it began to use it. And with that, a new era began. You see, using oxygen as part of metabolism is incredibly efficient. Instead of scraping by with just a few molecules of energy per glucose, aerobic respiration, burning fuel with oxygen, yields over 30 ATP molecules per sugar molecule. That energy boost made it possible for cells to grow larger, more complex, and eventually band together to form multicellular organisms. You wouldn't be listening to this now without that evolutionary leap. Mitochondria, those tiny power plants inside your cells, are a big part of this story. Scientists believe they were once free-living bacteria that found a mutually beneficial home inside larger cells. Over time, they evolved into permanent residents, handling the job of aerobic respiration and making life, as we know it, possible. This evolutionary partnership is so central that every complex organism on Earth, including trees, jellyfish, birds, and you, owes its existence to it. Fast forward several 100 million years, and oxygen levels in the atmosphere began to fluctuate. During certain periods, such as the Carboniferous era, about 300 million years ago, oxygen levels were significantly higher than they are today, reaching up to 35% of the atmosphere. This rich oxygen environment allowed insects to grow to enormous sizes. Picture dragonflies the size of seagulls and millipedes as long as a car. It sounds like science fiction, but it's fossil fact. Higher oxygen levels also made wildfires more common, as plant matter ignited more easily in oxygen-rich air. It's a reminder that oxygen, while vital, is also a fire starter. It doesn't burn on its own, but it feeds flames. That's why we use oxygen to enhance combustion in everything from welding torches to rocket engines. The same molecule that fuels your cells also powers explosions. It's all about context. Oxygen has also played a starring role in shaping evolution. As oxygen levels changed over geological time, so too did the organisms living on Earth. Some mass extinction events have been linked to drops in oxygen availability, others to sudden surges. Life and oxygen have evolved together in a delicate dance, sometimes harmonious, sometimes disastrous. Even today, oxygen continues to shape the world. Plants and algae on land and in the oceans produce vast amounts of it, while animals and microbes consume it. The balance is maintained by countless interconnected processes: photosynthesis, respiration, decomposition, ocean currents, and more. This is known as the oxygen cycle, and it's a beautiful example of nature's self-regulating systems. But oxygen's influence extends beyond Earth. Astronomers searching for life on other planets often look for traces of oxygen in alien atmospheres. It's not definitive proof of life, but it's a strong clue. Oxygen doesn't last long on its own. It reacts with other elements and disappears unless something, like life, is constantly replenishing it. So if we ever detect oxygen in the air of a distant exoplanet, it might just be a whisper from another world saying something is alive here. And while we're on the subject of other worlds, it's worth noting that humans have begun to think seriously about taking oxygen with us into space. Astronauts rely on carefully managed oxygen supplies in spacecraft and suits, and future missions to Mars or beyond will require oxygen generation systems, likely using electrolysis to split water into hydrogen and oxygen. In fact, a small device called MOXIE has already produced oxygen from Martian air, proving that future explorers might one day breathe air made on Mars itself. It's also fascinating to think that not all life on Earth uses oxygen. Deep in ocean trenches, in volcanic vents, and under thick layers of rock, anaerobic life still thrives, just as it did billions of years ago. These organisms remind us that oxygen isn't the only way to live, just one very successful path among many. In a way, oxygen tells a bigger story than just biology. It's a story of transformation, adaptation, cooperation, and survival. From its cosmic origins in the hearts of ancient stars to its role in driving evolution and shaping the future of space travel, oxygen is more than just a breath. It's a bridge between worlds, between eras, between life and the possibility of something more. And through it all, it remains humble, colourless, odourless, invisible to the eye, yet utterly indispensable. You don't see it, but you feel it with every breath, every heartbeat, every movement. The same molecule that once poisoned early Earth now sustains your every thought. The same gas that helped build forests also fuels fire. The same element that floated through ancient oceans now drifts gently in your lungs. Oxygen is more than just air. It's the quiet thread that runs through the entire story of life. And so, here we are, at the end of a journey that began with a single breath. We followed oxygen from its fiery birth in ancient stars to its quiet work inside your cells. We've watched it drift through your lungs, hitch a ride on red blood cells, spark the engines of your mitochondria, and finally leave your body as carbon dioxide, only to return again in a cycle as old as life itself. It's strange, isn't it? Something so small, so silent, so easily overlooked, yet absolutely essential. You don't have to ask for it. You don't have to control it. It arrives with every inhale and it leaves with every exhale. Steady, gentle, reliable. And perhaps now, as you lie there, eyes soft, breath slow, you might feel a little more connected to it. To this invisible traveller that's been with you since the day you were born. It's been through forests, oceans, clouds, and the cells of countless creatures before it found its way to you. And with each breath, it whispers the quiet truth. You are alive. If you've made it this far, thank you for spending this time with me. I hope this little journey into your own biology has brought you a sense of wonder, or perhaps just a deeper breath and a quieter mind. Maybe it was just the right amount of interesting, or maybe it was too interesting and you're still awake, in which case I can only say I'm flattered, and I sincerely hope sleep finds you soon. Before you drift off completely, I'd love if you gave this video a like and considered subscribing to The Sleepy Scientist. It helps this channel grow and reach more curious, cozy minds like yours. And just like at the beginning, I'd love to know, where in the world are you listening from? What time is it there right now? Drop it in the comments below. It's always a joy to see this sleepy little community stretching quietly across the globe. Now let your breath soften, let your thoughts float, and as you rest, know that oxygen will keep working gently in the background, just as it always has. Sleep well,